goal and objective today is just to do a quick run through of building an actual app right before your eyes. And through that process to show you a lot of the really cool built-in features that Alpha has that make it possible to do very, very complex, robust apps, but in a very simple way. And you'll see as we go through this, be able to do it with no coding throughout the whole process, which is very powerful because that means you don't have to be a software developer or engineer to do this. So what we're going to do today is build a full-featured, disconnected mobile inspection application in less than 1 hour. And the keywords there are full-featured, disconnected, which is very powerful, which I challenge any other technology to be able to do what we do in this 1 hour and achieve the same results with a very simple process. So here are some of the features of the application we're going to build today. First, it's going to be optimized for a phone. So it's really oriented around a small form factor kind of scenario. It's going to have an intuitive user interface, full offline capability. That means you'll be able to download information, edit that information, and synchronize that information back to your back-end data with little or no, well, with no work necessary to make that happen. We're also going to talk about offline image capture and synchronization, so you're not just limited to text data. We're also going to add in some mapping and some geolocation, which is very powerful for field inspection apps and for most apps now that are run on mobile devices in the field. So what we're going to do is the example we're going to use today, and I chose for this, was a property management inspection form. This is a sample on the screen here. The idea is that you have a property management company and they have a number of properties under management, and they have to go out, and when someone moves in, they need to do an inspection to check the status of that. When they move out, they have to do an inspection of that. And during that process, they have to record the condition of the environment, including being able to take an image of the property, so you have a visual record of it. And this is very powerful because often an image is worth 1,000 words. You can quickly capture images of properties and be able to see the exact state of that property when that occurred. So what I've done is I've simplified this for our demo today. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to walk through a little bit of the data, but then I'm going to dive right in and start building the app and talk about the different capabilities that are built into Alpha and explain a lot of the features and functionality, and more importantly, the kind of customization that you can do to make these apps fit your personal branding or your exact solution. And really, we're only touching the tip of the iceberg today, but I think you're going to really enjoy it from there. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to get out of my presentation here. I'm going to go into my development environment, but before I do that, I'm going to go into, this is called Navicat. This is a database management tool. And you're going to see that I have a database on MySQL. Now, I've used MySQL for this demo, but we'll talk about it. You can use it with any technology out there, meaning that you're not just limited to MySQL. You can use SQL Server, Oracle, also there are ways to connect to web APIs for this, so you're not limited. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we have a very simple database with a single table called Safety Inspection, and that includes the information that we want to trap: the status, the type of the inspection, some information about the property itself, including sort of the status of data, comments, and an image. So very straightforward. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up both this database and also the control I built today, and I'm going to be providing that to Dave so people can get access to it. So if you want to recreate what we do, it can be done very simply, and you won't have to actually go through and do it step by step, although highly recommend, if you have the opportunity, do so, because you will learn an enormous amount by going through the practices. So again, I have an existing data model where I want to collect information, and I'm going to go into my Alpha development environment. So this is my development environment. And for people who are new, which I assume most of the people on this presentation, we have a Access/Visual Studio type environment that allows you to create all the different things you need for an application. And the cool thing about this environment is that it has really two key features. First, it's simple, meaning that we can create things very complex very quickly and easily, meaning we can create complex items. And also what's very nice is we give you a full feature development environment, so if you need to kind of add your special sauce into your particular particular application, you can do that. You can bring in your own JavaScript, CSS, images, a whole wide range of things you can do that brings into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start the process, but before I do, I want to do a quick process check with Dave, make sure coming through visually and audio is working fine.
Hey, okay, man.
Good. Always a check to make sure I'm not talking to myself, which happens more often than
It's happened before, yeah.
So great. So the first thing I'd like to do is I've already created my app before, but I'm going to go through and walk through and do it individually. But the first thing I like to show is that Alpha has the concept of what are called Alpha DAO connections. And the idea behind that is that we can build what's called a connection string to a specific backend data source. So for the purposes of today, I've created one for MySQL where I've pointed my application, or I'm going to point to a database for that information. Now, the two things that are really cool about this is once I've done it, the rest of the process becomes point and click. The other part that's really powerful is that I'm not limited to just one. So if I have multiple connections I have to make, I have to connect to a server here and a server here and SQL server here. So for larger enterprises, I can be able to integrate multiple types of data sources very simple within the tool. And from once you've set up these Alpha DAO connection strings, the rest operates the same. So you can be doing the same thing for both a SQL server and MySQL. And beyond that, if you want to, you can actually use some native power of those solutions. We don't limit you, but the key is we make it easier for you. So I've already gone in and created a connection string that I'm going to use that connects to my database. In this case, it's a MySQL type connection, and we're going to do that. So now I've already got my connection built and ready to go in the system. So I'm ready to build the app. So I'm going to go up here to this button right here, click New. I'm going to click Web Component. Now we have a wide range of components that are built into Alpha. Gantt charts, schedulers, these are third-party tools. We also have image galleries, video players. So there's a wide range of things that you have in the box that are ready to go. What we're going to focus on today is the UX component, which is Alpha's, call it like a form. We call it a UX component. So I'm going to click on there because I want my mobile solution will really only have one form that does everything we need to do. So once I've clicked on UX, I'm going to click Next. Now, what thing you'll find is Alpha ships with a lot of really nice pre-built default templates, which are very powerful. So the one in particular I'd like to use here is called the Mobile App Framework Panel Navigator with tab buttons using control bars. A bit long-winded, but this is really the basis for most of our mobile development. And I highly recommend if you're starting to play with Alpha, use this as your starting point. It will save you a lot of work from there. I click OK. And in a moment, the Alpha solution will build a quick template of my application. So I want to talk a little bit about this environment real quick. On the left-hand side, we have things like properties, but more importantly, here are all my different controls that are available here. And as you can see, we have a wide range of controls: image, video, signature capture, button list, mapping, charting. And we'll touch on a number of these during our presentation today. In the center, you're going to see we have the layout of our app. Now, some people get a little confused. They're looking for what you see is what you get, but the cool thing about this is we're saying the structure of this app, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail in a few minutes, but what this allows you to do is create one form that's going to work on a phone, on a tablet, on a web page. It doesn't matter. It's really cool, and therefore it saves you a lot of support because you don't have to lay out things for every particular environment. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see we have a properties section. So as I select an item here, it gives me all the different properties that are available. And as you can see, there's a wide range of them. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that you can modify any little element to make the solution work exactly how you want it to work. So we have our basics, but then you can go in and tweak every element, which is very, very powerful. And one of the key things I like to talk about right off the gate is what's called style name. So everything we do is styled through CSS. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up, but you'll see that we have a whole bunch of pre-made styles that are available. Things like if I were building it for iOS, Android, etc. The one I'm going to be using today is called Alpha, which is our standard style, which is really good for mobile solutions. And also, I'll show you a little bit later in our presentation how you can quickly modify the colors and everything to match your requirements. But we also have ones that are specific for Android or iOS. So I'm just going to make sure we have Alpha is selected, our piece there. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this 1 hour in this case, UX. So we've saved it. And I'm going to go into our working preview, and I'm going to click Working Preview. And in a moment, you'll see we have an immediate working preview of our application. So built into Alpha is a built-in simulator so that you can immediately see what's going on. And that's a big difference with a lot of other tools. A lot of other tools require you to go through a compile and a build and then a launch and this and that. No, you can tweak things, go right into working preview and see exactly what they can do. So notice also we can look at, for instance, we're in an iPhone environment. I can look and say, hey, what does it look like in an iPad? And you'll notice as I change the size, all of our elements are responsive, meaning they lay out nicely on the screen. And then I can even show what it's going to look like on a Galaxy device, etc. Very, very handy to do that there. And you'll see this is a fully operational app. We have a menu up here. I can click on these buttons down here, and as I click on the buttons there, you're going to see the content in the middle here changes with different data there. And that's the idea of what we're going to talk about as panel cards, where we display information within different panels and swap them in and out, either programmatically or the user can actually swipe to go between different panels if you so choose. It's up to you to decide how you want it to work. Okay, so I've got my basic app here, so let's get started into the meat of this. So the bottom line is we want to be able to present to the people a set of selections when they log in on the first panel card. So this is called panel card 1, and this is the first thing the user sees. So what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and click here and delete that text here, and I'm going to go down over here and I want to add 3 buttons into this. So I'm going to add 3 buttons. So I'm going to click the button control over here. So you'll notice I have all of my different controls here in my layout of my form here. So I'm going to click button, button, button. So now I have 3 buttons that are on this page. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go to the first button and I'm going to change the text here and I'm going to go inspection list. Okay? Then I'm going to go here and call it new inspection, kind of laying the groundwork for how the person will do it. And then last but not least, we're going to go in here and we're going to type the word synchronize. So now I have 3 buttons with text on it from that standpoint. Let's go ahead and take a look immediately what that looks like. So you'll see that now I have 3 buttons right here. And these buttons don't do anything yet if I click on them, but they do work there. Now you'll notice a couple things. One is that they're all kind of bunched up over here in the corner. So I can do a couple quick changes to enhance this right now. So I'm going to go back into my design environment. I'm going to go to my first button. Now when I select on this button, you'll see over here on the right hand side that I have all my different attributes about that button, including what kind of CSS I use. I could hide the button. I could change many different characteristics. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I want this button to take up the whole width of the screen. So I'm going to go over here to my properties and I'm going to type in 100%. And so what I'm saying is that this button here should take up 100% of the screen. And so now when I go into working preview, you'll see that my button has changed, and now my button takes up the full width of that screen, and it's got a nice little hover effect with a mouse. On a finger, you would see it when you touched on it from there. Now check this out. Watch this. I'm going to go to a iPad 4 vertical. Well, look at that. It lined everything up nicely for me so that it's centered whether I'm on a phone or a tablet, or if I go horizontal, same kind of thing. That's the idea of responsive design. And so therefore, what's nice is you can create these responsive structures so that no matter whether the person's running this on a phone or running this on a tablet, it's going to look nice. It's going to lay out nicely, and you don't have to actually do any coding. You'll notice that I didn't write any JavaScript. I didn't have to detect the orientation. I didn't have to do any funny stuff to get it done. I just said, hey, whatever you do, take the button there. Now you'll see our other buttons here are kind of not where we want them to go, so let's go back into our design. So I'm going to click on this button here, and I could go in here and type in 100%, but that can get tedious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first button, click here, and I'm click this button that looks like an eyedropper. And when I do, I'm first going to select my property on the button I have that I like, 100%. Now I'm going to click on this little button here, and I'm going to go, and you'll see that we have a list of all our different. I'm going to highlight my other 2 buttons and click Set Properties. And now you'll notice that I copied that parameter or property from there. Now when I go into my working preview, I now have a nice set of buttons that are aligned in the middle, and they all operate and look nicely. So as you can see, we have a lot of time-saving capabilities. So as you get used to using Alpha, you can bang these things out quickly. And that's an important aspect of Alpha, is that since you can create very interfaces very quickly, you can experiment and enjoy and have fun and do demonstrations and do rapid prototyping and agile processes. Very fun stuff there. Okay, so we've got our first screen here. We're going to come back and talk about that in a few minutes here. But what I want to do is I want to, when the person opens up, it's going to download a list of inspections, and then I'll be able to add inspections to that. So on my first page, I have these buttons, but on my second panel card, I'm going to actually put my inspections there. Now to do so, I'm going to go ahead and delete our existing static text. I'm going to click here. And I'm going to add in here a very powerful control called a list control. And that's the heart of our offline capability. So I'm going to click list, and I'm going to go list inspections. So I'm going to give it a name. Now I could go ahead and start manually doing all this, but Alpha builds in nice genies that help walk you through the process of setting these things up. So I'm going to go ahead and use the genie to make my life simpler. So I'm going to click list control quick setup genie. It brings up a genie where I can answer some questions. The first question it's asking me is, where am I getting my data? And if we hark back to our connection strings, I created my connection string to my backend database. And this could be SQL, SQL Server, Oracle, it doesn't matter. I just have to select where I'm getting that data from. Now I'm saying what way I want to get it from fields from a specific table. And now I'm going to go into table name, and I'm going to click there. And you'll notice that it's not very exciting, but it automatically called the database, retrieved a list of the tables, and showed them on the screen. And these could be tables, views, etc. Now in our case, we only have one, but if it were a more extensive database, we'd have multiple tables that are available. And so I'm going to select safety inspection and have that there. You'll also notice when I did it, it knows, well, oh, I know the primary key, so I'm going to go ahead and set that. So the behind the scenes, Alpha is taking care of all the little nitty gritty, I call it plumbing, for you. Now that I've selected the table, I want to determine what data do I want to bring down from the server. So I'm going to go to field list. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and grab everything. I'm just going to pull all of these items down because I'm going to use them during our process here, including some image data there, and including some, we'll come back, very fun, is some geographic data there, or positioning system. So what's going on behind the scenes is Alpha is doing all the writing of the integration SQL. So it now knows how to retrieve the data. It also knows how to call and request data. It also knows how to edit, update, and delete data. All that's handled for you. We know the primary key. So we have our table, what fields we want out of there. Let's do the next thing. So what I want to be able to do is I not only want to bring these down and display them, I also want to do what's called a detail view. And a detail view allows me to edit the information in that table. And so this creates all the controls for me so I can immediately edit the data once I bring it down. And then last but not least, I'm going to go down here to the bottom to the disconnected operation. And there's one little button, I'm going to click that checkbox. And this will allow me to work with that data offline, meaning it's going to retrieve the data, bring it to the local device, allow me to edit it, and then take care of all the synchronization for me. So I always like to take a moment here when I'm talking to people, because by clicking this one little checkbox, I've saved man weeks, if not man months of effort of engineering, development time, testing time, validation time, because ordinarily with any other system, you have to create a local database. You have to write all the code to update that and all this. We don't have to do that. All you need to do is click this one little checkbox. We take care of the rest, and you'll see that in a moment. So we've selected where we're getting data from. We want a detail view. And last but not least, we're going to persist the data. So now when I click the OK button right here, you're going to notice it will take a moment, and Alpha is going to automatically generate the controls I need to perform what I have. So you'll see right here I have my list of inspections. That's the first item. And then we have a set of controls here for all of the different fields I need to be able to edit there. And then you'll notice it also created a set of pre-made buttons for things like saving new record, deleting record, etc. And we'll be coming back and doing a lot of cleanup, but that does it. So it's already generated all that. So I'm going to go ahead and save my control here, make sure it's all saved up as we go through. What's kind of nice about Alpha, and I won't go in here, but if I were to make a mistake, I can quickly kind of move back in versions. So it's good to save off in there. So on this second panel card, I want those list of inspections on, but I want to be able to edit it. So I'm going to actually take all of these controls right here, and I want them to actually be on panel card number 3. So right now they're on the same panel card as the list, but I only want the list to be in that one spot. So I'm going to go ahead, and once I've highlighted it, I have a nice little button up here. It looks like a stacked set of rectangles. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to take it down, and I'm going to put the positioning on the opening tag for panel card number 3 after, and I'm going to click OK. And what the system will do is it will take those controls, and now instead of them in panel card number 2, they're going to be in panel card number 3. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my old static text here, and I've set that up there. Now I've got a couple other quick adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into my list of inspections here because I want to show you a little bit of what it would look like. So you'll notice that we have a huge amount of capability to modify the behaviors and the type of items that we have in here. And we'll be showing some of those that are important for this application to do everything I want it to do. But let's go ahead and go to the list layout right now. You'll notice that we're using what's called a columnar type, where it's a set of columns. And if I did a preview list, this is what it's going to look like on the screen. And it takes a moment to render. But you'll notice I have all the lists. Notice it takes care of the image for me. Kind of cool. But this really won't look very good on the screen, especially on a phone. It's really essentially unusable. So that's the default, but I can modify that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list properties here. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click the layout type, and instead of column, I want to use freeform. Now I've set it up as freeform. I can go back to my list layout, and I have a blank slate. So here are my different fields that are available, so I could lay this out manually. But actually, again, Alpha has a lot of time-saving features. So I'm going to go ahead and click Predefined Templates here. And I'm going to go here to Level 1, Level 2. And as you can see, oh, actually, you know what? For this one, I want Level 1, Level 2 in Summary, because I want to show 3 pieces of information on the screen when you're seeing there. And so once I've selected the template, I click OK. Now I can put in what the summary is. So I'm going to put in the summary. The status of the summary. Level 1 is going to be the property name, and level 2 is going to be the inspection type. So this is basically just saying what information do I want to display, and once I've done that, you'll notice that all it's done is created some HTML and CSS, and it's put in here the property name, the inspection type, etc. Now when I do preview list, click preview, and you'll see we have a nice looking list. It gives you the property. What we're doing, is it a move in, move out, and then pending is the status of what we're doing from there. So now I can click OK. Check this out. It automatically looks at my situation and fixes things that for me automatically. In this case, it detected an image, so it asked me to go ahead and set that, and I go, yeah, sure, set it and fix it for me. So I'm off to the races here. So I can go into working preview, and you'll see that it's built and what I'll do here is notice I'm going to come back and wire this up, but I'm going to click here, and you'll notice I have my nice list here of everything. And then I can click on an item there and go into here and see that data there. Now check this out. When I click an item here, let's say point west, I go here, it's actually wired everything up for me. So I didn't have to do a lot of JavaScript. It's actually done the wiring for all these fields for me. Now, as you can see, this is not pretty yet, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time on, is making this pretty and really making it optimized for a mobile platform. But what I wanted to show you really quick is that we already take care of all the plumbing for you. So for instance, I can click on here, we've wired it up. In fact, what I can go down here is I'm going to go to, let me go here, let me go to this first one here, and I'm going to go to address to, and I'm going to go ADDR2. So I'm going to modify that information. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to save my change. Now you're going to notice something pretty cool. First, the synchronize button that was already put on there is ready to go. I can click on there. If I go back to my list, you'll see that there's a little orange caret for me. And this little orange caret says I have modified the data on the device, but it has not been persisted back to the backend database. So all my offline capability is already built in, ready to go. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to write code. And now I can go back in here and click synchronize. The system will call the backend database, compare my data to the backend database. If it doesn't find any conflicts, it updates it. If it does, it's going to give me a warning, and I'm done. So again, very powerful is that within a matter of a few minutes, it took me about 5 minutes to get here, I have built a full offline disconnected application, meaning that I could then pull this data down, completely shut down my Wi-Fi, my cellular, go out and edit all this data, and then re-enable that, hit sync, and it would synchronize all that data back up. Huge time saver, enormous for this kind of capability here. So I'm going to go back in here. I want to kind of clean up my data so we have nice clean data here. Get rid of that. I'll go here, and I'll go ahead and save that and synchronize it. All taken for me. Now, what I'd like to focus on is you'll notice this interface is kind of not very pretty and not very helpful. So I'm going to start modifying this right now to make this a little bit useful. So I'm going to go back into design, and I'm going to start here. These are where those detail items here. Actually, let's do one thing very quickly. When I log in, right now I have to go down here to go to my list. I really want to click this button right here and go to my list. So let's go ahead and change that. So I'm going to go into my design. I'm going to go to my first button here, and when I click this button, basically I want to show this panel card, i.e. currently I'm on this panel card and I want to set the active panel card to be this one so I see my list. So all I have to do is double click on this button. As you can see, I could go ahead and type in JavaScript. So if you're proficient in JavaScript, you're welcome to use JavaScript. But Alpha has something very cool, which is called Action JavaScript. And I'm going to go click this Add New Action button right here. So we have a whole bunch of pre-built actions for you, so you don't have to learn JavaScript. And these are very powerful. These can do mapping, SMS calls, email messages. I mean, a wide range of capabilities, and these are being added to all the time. Every release, we add new features into this to do more complex things with less work on your part. So what I want to do is I'm going to type the word panel, and I'm going to click Panel Actions, Multiple Actions. I'm going to click OK. So what I want to do is I want to set the active panel. But as you can see, we can do a ton of things. We can hide panels, we can scroll panels, whatever we want to do. But I'm going to click Set Active Panel. And then what I'm saying is, which panel card do I want to go to? Well, panel card number 2. So, and I'd like it to animate it as it does there. So now instead of having to learn arcane JavaScript and writing it, I can point and click OK, and I'll say go to panel to list. So I have a comment there, and then I click Save. So now I've added a behavior to that button. This one's a very simple one, but that could have been much more complex, which we'll show you a little later. So now when I go into my working preview, I click on Inspection List, voila. Pretty groundbreaking, no, but that's really straightforward. And so the idea is that you can add all these common behaviors, even things like these pop-up menus, these items down here, very simply. We allow you to do it without coding, which allows you to work on those pieces there. So as we mentioned before, what I really want to focus on is cleaning up this page here to make it a little bit more usable. So let's go back into the design. First thing, so let me tell exactly what I'd like to do to clean this up. As you can see, it's kind of a, first, ID is like an internal, I don't want them to see that, so I want to hide that. Inspection status right now are text boxes, and I'd rather make those so the person can easily select something with their finger, because I only have certain things. It's either pending or completed, and for inspection type, it's either move in or move out. Then I'm also going to come back and change and clean this up so it's a little nicer. So let's go back into design and go to here. So the way you change the sort of look and feel is you select an item here, and then you set all of your parameters here. Much like with that button, we clicked and made it 100%. So like for instance, with ID, I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to click the hide button. Boom, done. So now when I show my screen, it's going to be there, but it's going to be hidden, and the user can't access it, which is handy from there. Now, I'm also going to go here first to my inspection status, and let's look at that. You'll notice that one thing happened there was that when I had inspection status, it uses the name in the database, which is not very user-friendly. And you'll also note it defaulted it to the left. So let's change inspection status. First, I'm going to show you what it looks like right now after we got rid of the ID. And this is the fun part. You know, when you get to this point, you can go back and forth very quickly and be looking at the different records here. So you can see my ID's gone. What I want this is I want the inspection status to be on top, and I also want to change the name of that so it's a little nicer. So I'm going to go back into design, go to inspection status. I'm going to scroll down in my properties here till I get to the field label. And so this is the label that's so. So I'm going to click in here and just say status for the label name. And then the position currently is left. What I want to do is have the position of that above. So let's go in and take a look at the working preview real quick. Back and forth. And we'll go right here and select there, and you'll see starting to look a little nicer. We have the word status here, and we have the word pending here. And so I can start tweaking and making this. Now, remember, which is kind of fun, is that, for instance, if I want the position of all of these to be on the top, this is great. I can click the one I like, click this little button here, select the fields that I'd like them all to be in. I'm just going to go ahead and do them for all of them, and click Save. And now when I go into working preview, I can make these kind of bulk changes very quickly so that when I go here into inspection list, you'll see that now all the items there. I haven't changed the name of them yet. I have to kind of clean those up, but you can see it's starting to look a little nicer, a little easier for them to scroll through. It's not all scrunched together in all those pieces here. Now, you'll notice all of this is text data, and I'd really rather have it be, especially for status and inspection type, I want it to be select from a list. So let's go ahead and go back into design. I'm going to start with status here. Now, currently it is a text box. So I'm going to go to the top here, and I'm going to go to the control type for inspection status. And here's where it gets real fun. Check it out. You have an enormous amount of controls that are available for you. Simple ones like labels and text boxes will show you images, but we also have a wide range of things like video players, audio players, image capture we'll show you in a few minutes. You can show maps, you can show charts. Just the sky's the limit, and you can do amazing number of things here. So for our purposes, to keep things simple, is what I want is a classic radio button. The idea is that the inspection status is either pending or complete. And so I'm going to go ahead and click radio button there. And so now what I've done is, if you notice, once I've selected that, my choices over here have changed. So now I have this down here, because it's a radio button, I have a series of choices. So I'm going to go in here and say pending and complete. Now this is lowercase. I could do something along the lines of pending bar, and what would happen is this is what's shown on the screen, this is what's saved underneath. But to keep things simple, I'm just going to keep the same. So my choices for inspection status are pending and complete. So when they're on there and they're editing this, I only want them to select one of those two items there. So now I can click Save. I can go into my working preview, and let's take a look and see what it looks like. Inspection list, and you'll notice I've now got pending and complete. So it's able to do that from that standpoint there. Now, what we'd like to do, and actually let me check one thing. Oh, it's uppercase pending. Okay, let me fix my choices here. I've noticed in my database I created everything uppercase, so it's pending and complete. The only thing was, when I showed you that, it was kind of like a radio button that looks like, you know, we're hip in 1994 or something along those lines. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to change this, the look and feel of this, to make it more mobile oriented. So over here you'll notice in my radio button properties, I have a property here called render as button list. I'm going to go ahead and enable that. There we go. And I've got some changes. I can make some modifications now to this. I have enormous amount of control over making this thing work exactly what you like. So now if I go ahead and save this and go into my working preview, takes a moment. So you can see right now I'm spending more time on look, feel, how it's operating, not coding and the background. That's super important. So I'll go here, go into my look, and hey, check it out. I've got pending and complete now that are in my status here. And you'll notice when I select them, it automatically puts in a little check mark for me automatically. So this is starting to look much more like a modern a web application. We don't have older looking controls in there. We can make it. So I'm going to go through real quick, and I want this inspection type to be the same thing. It's either going to be move in or move out, and I want it to look basically the same here. So I'm going to go in design, go to inspection type. First thing I'd like to do is change the label. I'm going to go back up here to the control type, and I'm going to click the control type and select radio button. After I've done that, I'm going to now go down here, and I've got my choices, and I have move in, move out. Okay. And again, I want to render as a button list, and I'm good to go. So now I can do working preview. And we'll go through this and it'll render this up for me. And I can immediately see the results of my work. I've now got pending, move in. Notice this was already checked because that was the value that was in the system, in the database already. So I have a pending in the movie. And again, right now, if I click complete, it's just going to change. There's a lot of really cool things you can do. Say, like for instance, this is not complete unless this form is filled out. I can actually put validation on this saying, I cannot change it to this value unless all these things are filled out. And that, very straightforward to do, don't need any coding, but you can make these forms very intelligent in how you use them from there. Okay, so we've got our forms starting to look a little nicer, and it's starting to look like a mobile application. So let's take it to the next level. You'll see in here, I'm going to change these names, property name, address, etc., so they look good. But you know, the reality is you'll notice that they only go halfway across the field. And so I'd really like this to go a little bit farther so I have a little bit more room to work with it. The other thing is I don't like the names on here. So let's go ahead and look at property name and change that real quick. So I'm going to go to property name. I'm going to first go down here to field label, and I'm just going to call it name. So there. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to my width, and I'd like that width to be 90%. Now, I could have set it as 100%, but I want to leave a little white area to the right of it so when you're swiping up and down, your finger can kind of click on the white area and do it. Otherwise, you might click and it might think you're editing that item there. And since I'm here, I might as well go ahead and take this width component, hit my there, and let's go ahead and change all of these to, these are my other text entry into those that I go from there. Now, one thing that I want to show you right now, which is very powerful, and this, well, I'll come back to it in a few moments, has to do when you create a new record. What we can do is we can input default values, and we can also enforce validation so that data is validated. But I'll touch on that when I come back to that in a moment. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to here. I'm just going to do a couple quick changes since I'm here. Like, for instance, I'm going to change that to address 1. I'm going to change this to address 2, so it's starting to look nice. City. And we're going to go state. By the way, this state is currently a text field, but I could use, say, a drop-down box or a list control, a lot of other things here. So now I've set those up here. They're all 90%. I can go into my working preview, and let's take a quick look at my changes just to make sure we're on track. Okay, and I'll go in here and go look at that. Okay, so we got our statuses and type. You'll notice now my area goes over about 90%, but I've left a little white area here so I can click over here and drag on it, and everything looks good. Okay, so now let's take it to the next level. And so we have this thing here called smoke detectors. The idea is in on my inspection, when I go out, I want to make sure, hey, do we have the smoke inspectors or detectors in the house that we're inspecting? Are the fire extinguishers there? What do the stairs look like? Are they clear? The hallways, are they cleared, etc.? What is the parking lot? So it's sort of a checklist concept. So let's go back into my design, and let's go down here to smoke detectors. Currently in the database, it's either 1 or 0, yes or no. So I could change that also to a radio button. That would be perfectly okay like I did before, but I want to make a little more interesting kind of look. Excuse me. So I'm going to go here to smoke detectors. I'm going to click on control type, and I'm going to change it to a what's called a switch control. I'm going to click OK, and it's a logical control there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this. So I'm going to go to working preview. Go into my inspection list. We'll go in here and check this out. Now if I move down, you're going to notice, look at this. It's kind of a slider thing. And if I click on it, you'll notice it changes side to side. And you'll notice when I went in here, it was enabled because it was a 1. Well, hey, I think you can already detect how we want to change this. I want this to be wider here. So we can go to design, go to smoke detectors, go to my width component here, say 90%, and then go back into my working preview. And we'll take a look at my change. Now we're starting to cook with gas, and we're starting to make something that someone who has had no training at all can pick this up and immediately understand what they need to be doing on it. So I'll go in here, scroll on down. So now I've got it. And I can actually go in here. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. I can also say, what is the state of that? So I can go down here. The text for this is yes, or yes and no. This is the text I want to show when you have an on state or an off state. So I'm going to click save, go back into working preview and show you that. So to even make it more obvious to the person that's using this UX or this design, I can go in here and you'll see that now, oh, nope, no smoke detectors, yes, smoke detectors. So it's really idiot proofing the interface so that you can do that. Now notice something interesting too. When I clicked this and made the change, check out what happened. It automatically detected, hey, whoa, whoa, you made a change locally. I haven't persisted back there. So even though we've changed the type of control and everything else, underneath it, we're handling all that plumbing for you to make sure that if you change the data that it's actually on top of, it's going to work great. So I'm going to go back in here real quick. I'm going to go here and I'm going to change these. This is where it takes a few moments. Wish I had a fast forward switch right now, kind of, so I don't bore you to death as I go through this. Stairs. And by the way, what I may do sometimes, what you can do is you can actually take a control, copy that control, and then paste it or duplicate it, and therefore all the parameters I've set on that control are already set. So that actually is an easy way to be able to build these things very quickly. And once you get going, there's different ways you can attack to it so that you can put them together very quickly. So I'm going to go here, go to there, go to the switch button, and then logical, and there we go. And then we got those. I'm going to go ahead and go to my first smoke detector, go to my width here, and use my handy dandy, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to go change these. You can see the current status, change it there. Okay. So now everything looks basically the same. I haven't changed the on and off. We'll just assume those for time saving here. So now I've set all those up, so it's sort of like a quick checklist, boom, 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 in and out. Someone is very easy for them to understand, and they can be walking through each of those elements. For comments, I'm going to go ahead and just change this because from a text box to what's called a text area, because this allows you to type in a lot more data, because that's sort of random comments there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at where we're at real quick for our working preview. God. Okay, inspection list, go here, and I can scroll down. You'll see we have our nice little checkbox list here. Have a comments area, check this out, it can expand. So if I have a whole bunch of text I want to type in there. By the way, when you're on a phone, that's really fun. This will just bring up the standard keyboard, which if you have Siri or like a Google Voice or whatever it's called, you can actually go in there and start live dictating into it if you have that feature on your phone. Is pretty good. Now check this out. Below that I have an image because I want to capture an image when I'm out there on my inspection. You'll see right now it's showing it as sort of the data that makes up that image. So let's fix that really quick. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my design. I'm going to go to my image here. And what I'm going to do is right now it's a text box, so I'm going to change this to a image. So now I'm saying represent this data as an image. And I'm going to go ahead and just change my width right now to 90% because I'd like it to scale that image so it's 90% of the width of the phone and that piece there. And so I click Save. I go into Working Preview. And I go into my inspection list, go here, I'll scroll down, and now instead of gobbledygook, oh, my image is showing here. Let's see. Oh, it shows the images there, but we'll come back and we'll fix that because we're going to capture an image right here. Must have some bad data in my database right now. But I don't like this image up here, so I'm going to get rid of that text right there. So let me go ahead and go in here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and change the label. I'm going to actually tell the label to have none. So I don't really need a label for that. What I want to do is add a button that I can capture an image in my database. So I'm going to go ahead and click on comments here. And what I'd like to do is add a button after comments to capture an image. So I'm going to click Other Controls, Button here. So I've added a button control. and I'm going to put the text of that to be capture image, and I'm going to make the width to be 100%, much like we did before. Okay, now one thing about that is that, you know, it will display that text, but I wanted to make it even a little more visual for the person. So one of the cool things and a lot of fun we can do with Alpha is that we can use imagery. So I'm going to click button, capture image, and instead of button layout, I'm going to type image followed by text. And now you'll notice I have a lot of new options. I'm going to click image name, click SVG icon, and we ship with a whole bunch of nice little SVG icons, which is really becoming the industry standard. SVG allows you to have very pretty scalable icons. They take up very little space. They're really cool. And there's a huge amount of libraries that you can bring in there. So I'm going to type the word up here, camera, and filter, and select camera here and go like that. So now it's going to have this nice little camera in front of the text when I show it on the screen. Now right now this button doesn't do anything. So what we want to do is when you click on that button, we want it to go ahead and capture an image. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on here, and you'll notice I'm in my action JavaScript. I'm going to click add new action, and I'm going to type the word image. So we have a whole bunch of cool things. We have image upload, camera, photo, etc. But I'm going to click this one here called image capture for list detail view, camera, photo, library, and click OK. So now this is asking me, okay, you want to capture an image. Where do you want me to put that data? So I go image control, image one. We only have one. We could have multiple on there. We're not limited to one from that standpoint. You'll notice that it's going to use what's called HTML5. If I'm going to be building this for PhoneGap, i.e. a standalone, then I can say it's PhoneGap. And what's really cool about that, that opens up a lot of other features in terms of capturing raw image information, doing things like that. And then I can also do some other things like create thumbnails and resize the image if I need to, but I'm going to click OK. I'm just going to type capture image. And there you go. So again, action JavaScript. Very simple to use, but creates very complex interactions. So let's go into working preview. I'll go to inspection list, go to my Serenity Gardens. Go ahead and scroll down. First you're going to notice, which is kind of nice, we have a new button here. 100% of the width. It has a nice little icon in front of there. Now you'll notice in here when I clicked on this, since I'm running on my desktop, it's going to open up here. If I were on a phone, it would open up my camera roll, and I'd be able to select that from there. So I'm just going to go to my pictures here, and I'm going to go ahead and select a picture here. And voila, check it out. Done. No coding and zero work, and it all takes care of it for me. And you'll notice that this data is now set in there, and then when I come down here and say synchronize, I'll save this change, and when I click synchronize, that data now is synchronized, and that image is now in my database on the back end, and I can use it in a dashboard or a report or whatever you want to do there. But the important thing about that is I can make it look what I want, and I spend my time getting the behaviors I want, not coding. Huge time saver here. Now, one thing that's cool about the capture image is, again, currently what I'm doing is when I click there, it's going to open up and it'll say, do you want to take it from your camera roll or do you want to take a picture now? It does all that for you, so you don't have to do anything, and it just puts the data in there. But if you do use PhoneGap, as I mentioned before, this could be a video, it could be an audio clip, it could be a high-resolution picture, and we can actually synchronize the data separately up to Amazon S3 and other places here. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do with the technology, and the behaviors are the same, meaning that you'll create a button, you'll add that action, double click on it, set a few different parameters, you're done. Very fun, very cool there. Now, I'm going to come back and talk a little bit lat and long, but before I want to show how we can add another very cool behavior for inspection apps, which is very powerful here. So I'm going to go up here. So I've got an address here, name, address, etc. And I want to be able to see that on a map. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click Save. I'm going to go back into Design. So what I want to do is add a button here that when I click on that button, it is going to display a map for me. So first thing I want to do is I want to put a map on there so I can display it. So I'm going to go down here to panel card number 4, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to go into panel card number 4, and I'm going to go over here. It's telling me I've only got a little bit left. I got to wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and go here and add a map. I'll call this property map. Okay. Now, once I have the property map here, I actually am going to do a little trick. I'm going to open up my old one here. One of the things about maps that you'll need to know is that we use Google Mapping, and Google Mapping requires you to have an API key. So I'm going to cheat here and take that key and then go back into my app here and just paste it in here. So now that I have my map, I can go up here, put in my key, and again, this is something fairly new that that they require. That way, when it makes the call to Google to actually render the map, if you don't have it, gives you a little gotcha there. So I've added my map into my panel there, but I want to add a button in here that will actually generate that map. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say we want to put that, let's say right after the zip, before we do the checkboxes here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new button here. So add a button. And I'm going to type that button and call it map property, okay? And as we did before, I'm going to make that width of 100%, and to give some visual zing to it, I'm going to take the button, go image followed by text, image, going a little faster now as you get used to it. This is what you'll be doing, map, oop, I like that. That's a nice looking one there. So I'll go ahead there. And now I've kind of styled my button here. And again, I could have taken this button right here, duplicated it, moved it up, tweaked it, up to you on how you want to do that. So now that I have this map, I want to add a behavior to it. So I'm going to double click on it, go into my add new action, and type map. And you'll see we have a pre-built map capability in alpha. So first thing it's asking me is which map do I want to operate on? Second thing it's doing is what do you want to do? And as you can see, right now I'm going to add a single marker to the map. But I could easily add multiple markers. I could remove markers. I could center map. Really cool. You can do all these cool mapping things. And think about this. Let's say I'm a property manager, and in the morning I go, I've got 5 people moving out today, and they're at 4 different properties or something like that. What I can do is actually show all of the different properties on a single map, so I could plan my route. I can, oh, I'll do these in the morning and these in the afternoon, or I'll fit these in here. So a lot of functionality, but I'm going to keep it simple and say add a marker to the map. Now, I could use explicit where I just type in an address here, or I could click device location so I can actually show where I am on the map, or I can say controls on component. And what that means is that I'm going to actually look at the current address information, which I don't need true, city, state, zip. So I'm going to look at whatever is currently located on there to do there. And then the data type, I'm telling it, oh, it's an address. I could feed it a latitude and longitude. So if I've already put in latitude and longitude for all of my positions, I could use that, either or. And what's cool is that Alpha will go, oh, if you're doing that, we'll geocode it and put it on the map for you. So it does a lot of work there. And I could go in here and change all the marker, make it a different icon, everything else, go from there. Now, so I've added a action here. When I click on this, it's going to actually update the map on that component, but it's hidden down here, but I actually need to show the person that map. So I'm going to click add new action. I'm going to go to my panel actions, set my active panel to be panel card number 4. And so what it's going to do is it's going to do 2 things. It's going to not only do the map, but it's also going to take me and show me that map. So I'll click save. Now, in working preview, certain things like mapping and stuff like that, what we want to do is use something called live preview, or let me show you something even cooler. I can actually now take and launch this in my web browser. And this will just take a moment here as I launch my web browser, but what it's going to do is actually run this in my web browser, which is very close approximation to what people will be doing. And again, it takes a moment because it's preparing all the files, launching the browser, and then you'll see in a moment I have my application up and showing on the screen, so I can show you these behaviors here. And this is also going to be important when we talk about location grabbing, which we'll do in the next few minutes once this comes up and shows me. So I can be testing this, and what's cool is I could actually excuse me, test this on a local device too. So if I wanted to, there's a feature that allows me to actually use my phone and point it to my development machine, and off to the races here. So we'll see what we've got here. I'm going to click inspection list as it downloads the data here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Serenity. I'll go in the details. Everything is what you've seen before. Now we have a new button here. I'm going to click Map Property, and oh, check it out. So I see, notice it's got this blank area, and I have my map right here, but look at the map here. This is actually a real-time map of in Austin where that is located at. Now, there's a problem here. What I want this map to do is take over this whole space. And right now it's showing that there. So I'll go ahead and get out of here. And all we have to do is go to our map here, and we can say fill container. Now that I hit fill container, boom, it's going to take over that whole space, and it's going to look great there. Now there's one other thing I want to show you, and as you can see, there's so much things we can do. One thing I want to do is, you know what, when I actually record information, I want to record where this data is saved, meaning that I've got these fields here called lat, lon, and location, and currently they're exposed. Normally they'd be hidden. But when I update and save this information, I want to update that information so I know where was the last place that was edited. And so what I can do, which is really fun, is I'm going to go up here, go into my list control. I'm going to go to my detail view here, and I'm going to go into table properties. And we have this really cool feature here called store location information when record is saved. And this is built in. So currently it's no, but what I'm going to do is say yes. And you'll notice that once I did there, it's saying, oh, okay, what's the latitude field? Well, I've got a hidden one here called lat, and I've got a hidden one here called lon. And guess what? I can also update what's called a location field. And I won't go into detail of that now, but it's a special data type that's in your database. And what it allows you to do is geographical searching. And Alpha actually has tools that allow you to essentially draw a circle or a polygon on a map and go and show you what's inside there. And that's what uses here. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, because I built into this a location field that's available. And now I can say, hey, when do you want to do this? Do you want to do this when you insert or insert and update? And that controls it. If you only want to do it when you create the record, that's great. If you want to do it every time you change, you can do that. That way you know last place is edited. And I'll click OK. So now what's going to happen is when I save this, it's going to automatically update the lat and lon information for me. And I'll show you that in one moment there. To also let you know the power of it, if I were to create a button here, and I'm just going to go ahead and open a new one, we actually have built in a whole bunch of geocode and geolocation function, so we can actually set fields by a button. So it's not only when you save a record, but if you wanted someone to press a button and record their current location, or on an action, like let's say someone does something, you always want to record that, you can do that in this manner, so you're not just limited to the other method there. So let's go ahead and do this. To actually test this, again, we need to be in our browser, so I'm going to go ahead and save that and reload it in our browser. And you'll see, and we'll talk a little bit about that capability in a moment as this comes up. And then once that's done, I'm going to show you a couple other quick things to make it look good, and then we can wrap it up in the next few minutes. And from there, we'll have our 1 hour app ready to go. And then I want to talk about how I would then distribute that to people so they could start using this application. So in a moment, once this refreshes and builds the page and puts it on the screen, we'll have our inspection list. I'm going to go here, go to my Serenity Gardens. I'm going to go ahead and edit this. Let's say it's now a move out one. And then I'm going to go down here and I've got my image data. I'm going to click save. Check this out. Now notice I'm not going to move my mouse, but look what happened. My browser is saying, hey, this app is asking the browser to give it location data. Should I share it? And I can either say share it once or always or not now, etc. And so geolocation is required. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. It's telling me what's the deal. But I'll go ahead and save, and I'm going to share that location. And so you'll now notice that the lat and lon has been updated here with my current location. And the location here actually it's a special data type, so it doesn't show in this field here. Now, since I'm in a browser, the browser's going to use security elements to say whether or not you can do that. You'll notice it popped up that little message. And that would be the same thing on a phone out in the field. But if I were to wrap this in PhoneGap, which is a very simple process, the first time the application tries to get your location, you will be asked permission, and once you've given it permission once, from then on it won't ask you. So there's some inherent advantages of using PhoneGap in terms of wrapping it into an app that can be loaded on that from that standpoint there. Okay, so I'll go ahead and synchronize this. Notice it's asking me to share the location. And now I've got them location. So now I know exactly where this person edited this record, and the location data would be happening offline so that you could trap it while they're out in the field, and then it gets synchronized back to it. Okay, I want to show two quick things, and then I want to show how we publish it. First, one of the key things, there's two things. When you create a new record, you want to do, there's two things that are going on. One is that you want to set default values. So let's say with the inspection status, whenever I create a new record, I want it always to be pending, because then it's already set for the person. So what's nice is I have this thing called a default value, and I can just go into this field, status, default value of pending. Then what's going to happen is whenever this record is created, it's going to default that as the initial value of it. So I don't actually have to type that in or have that in there. The other thing I like to show real quick is that when you have a field here, we have what are called validation rules. So for instance, when someone's putting in new data, I always want them to put a property name. I don't want them to be able to save the record if they can't do that. Well, what's great about that is we don't have to write a lot of JavaScript. We can actually go in here to validation rules, say enable rules, and require a value, and then we have a whole bunch of other parameters to say what data can be put in there, how long can it be, etc. So again, point and click and not coding. Huge time saver there. Okay, so I've got my app. I can connect to my backend database. I can download my information. I can view my information. I can edit my information. I can map my information. I can grab location of my information. I can do all that offline. But now how do I get that in the hands of the people? There's two ways to distribute it. One is I can publish this and publish it to our app server that's running on a server that's exposed to the outside world, and a person can pick up their phone, put in the right URL, and connect to that. So that's method number one. And the offline capability will work. It's somewhat limited just because of certain security restrictions, but it does work there. My other method is I can go into our integrated PhoneGap build process, which is from Adobe. It's a third-party product, and basically it submits our stuff there, wraps it into a file that can be downloaded for either an Apple, iOS, a phone, or Android or Windows phone. And in fact, I can build for both platforms. I can say I want it for both Android and iOS, and then I tell it which component I want right here, which is my 1-hour app that I just built here. I can go down here and tell it if I want to include a whole bunch of stuff. For instance, I can do what's called background geolocation, so it's picking up my background. I can get the camera with EXIF, so I can not only capture the image, but all the data about that image, and a whole other things like flashlights and barcode readers, QR code readers. The sky's the limit. I click Save and Upload to PhoneGap Build. It builds it, gives me a QR code. I download it on mine. I'm ready to go. And these are full files that can be then distributed to the either Google Play Store or to Apple App Store. And we have apps that are up and running in there, alpha apps from many of our own and also our clients that are running in there. So your two methods are go to a web browser, use it in a web browser kind of environment, or PhoneGap, which really is preferred just because you're going to get a more solid offline capability from that standpoint there. So there's many other things, and we have a lot of training and other things. Oh, let me do one last thing. And I apologize, I should have cut it off. I'm probably a couple minutes late, but you'll notice it's kind of a drab interface right now. I've got, kind of dark. It's a very dark app right now. Well, I can go into my design here, go to my properties, and I can actually go in here and customize my forms right here. So I can create and modify the look and feel of everything I do using built-in capabilities. And this is all CSS. So if you want to, you can hire a really good CSS designer who can come in and create custom buttons, and they just work in our environment. You can use third-party bootstrap themes, things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do my header background here. And what I'd like to do is change it to something a little more interesting. So I'm going to click OK. Click OK. And now when I go into my working preview, it's going to override my defaults. And again, you can save this and reuse this over and over. And now, if all works, I've got a nice, more brighter color. It's looking nicer, a little bit more exciting, a little bit more happy property. So that, so I can include there. So I'm going to cut it off here. That's how to build an app in 1 hour. You can modify all this text, the icons, and all those pieces here, all ready to go. But that gives you, I think, a good feel for what you can do in a think of what you can do in a full day.
Dion, thank you so much for giving today's presentation. If you do have any further questions, please send them over to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, at alphasoftware.com. A copy of this recording will be available in about 2 days, we expect on Friday, and should be found at videos.alphasoftware.com. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at a future webinar. Take care, and goodbye.